is making the rounds. I guess I went a little viral, as the kids say, yesterday for an appearance I did on Fox News in the morning, in which I was asked to go on to talk about wokeism and how wokeism and AOC's party are like, they're going so far woke that they're going to lose in the midterms. I wasn't accepting that because I don't think that is the biggest crisis of our time. But, you know, I'll play the clip. Let's play the clip and I'll tell you what my tactic was here. Because, you know, it is tough going on Fox, and I'm very, very used to being on the show. It's a little harder when you're doing it virtually than in person. But I do know, you know, this host pretty well, and I know how far I can push her. But with that being said, the conversation definitely went in a different direction. And I think that's why it abruptly ended. Let's play this clip.
Democrats who are afraid the party's going too far.
Too many Democrats just don't speak in terms of the average American comprehending what they're saying.
The Democrats have got to step away from the super wokeness. I mean, San Francisco really tells what's going on. If you give the Republicans the ability to point to Democrats as this super woke culture focused on the wrong things that don't matter to voters, you're going to lose. And it's that simple.
That was two super wokes. The Wall Street Journal editorial board writes it this way. If it can happen in San Francisco, of all places, Democrats should be worried. They need to escape their union bondage and woke fixations. Republicans have a great opportunity to press parental choice on curriculum, charters, and vouchers. The woke may wake up to a far bigger shock in November. Power panel now. T.W. Shannon, former Black Voices for Trump co-chair and former Speaker of the Oklahoma House of Representatives. Nomiki Konst, host of The Nomiki Show and a former national surrogate for Bernie Sanders. It is great to have you both. Let's kick it off. T.W. Woke is on its way out if they're not careful, Democrats. Why?
Yeah, there's no question, Harris. I mean, listen, I wish I could take full credit for this as a conservative in the Midwest part of the country, but the reality is the COVIDian tyrants did this to themselves. We've watched this country completely implode under the leadership of Joe Biden. And even before that, we saw the woke agenda of the left completely trying to separate Americans with things like CRT and trying to define us based upon our color of our skin, not the content of our character. They've done it to themselves with these totalitarian policies that only seek to divide Americans and to consolidate power within the Democrat Party. And they did it to themselves when grandma was dying, Nancy Pelosi was going to get her hair done. When Americans were watching getting pink slips and losing their jobs, you had people like Barack Obama and AOC throwing parties and living on a different standard. That do as I say, not as you see me do. That doesn't work anymore, and Americans are tired of it, and they're going to be rewarded in the midterms for doing what's right and standing up for freedom.
He brought up white supremacy and said that Joe Biden said it was the biggest threat. No, the FBI says it's the biggest threat to democracy right now. But I'd like to tie that back to the big elephant in their big elephant room, which is, of course, the January 6th attacks. Unless we keep mentioning this, they are going to take the narrative. They're trying to distract away from the terrorist attacks that occurred. So when I go into these rooms, you don't have to answer the question the way they ask it. You don't have to respond to every attack. You just have to have your narrative, and enough of it.
Nomiki, I want to get to a couple of things with you, and you can roll in your rebuttal if you want. But let's pop up the Washington Examiner with this. The hold Democrats once had on cultural issues is breaking. Hence, why dozens of House Democrats are jumping ship now and retiring before the midterm elections, and why the party's House campaign arm warned its candidates this week that if they don't figure out how to combat the GOP's alarmingly potent culture war attacks, they will lose badly. And as of today, 30 House Democrats are either retiring or seeking a different office. Nomiki.
Well, it's a redistricting year, and so the same thing's happening on the Republican side. That's what happens every redistricting year. But, there was one line there that was very powerful. Combating the Republicans' rhetoric, right? Their attacks. This never let a good crisis go to waste. When Donald Trump was handed the responsibility of of really making America the leader in combating COVID, what did he do? He was rallying against the American government and inspiring terrorist attacks on the Capitol.
That's not true.
So you want to talk
That's
about
absolutely not true.
Oh, goodness gracious.
All right, I'm going to step in there because you are putting things, incendiary things, into the conversation, and I know that TW wants to rebut that. So quickly, and we'll come right back to you. Hold on, TW?
Yeah, there's no way we're going to sit here and pretend like Donald Trump was promoting terrorism. That you should apologize to American people for saying that. That's just not true. The reality is the reason Democrats are losing is because Joe Biden has told us over and over that the #1 problem in America is white supremacy, and it's not. That's not what's facing Americans. The people that are losing their jobs is
TW,
not
I'm going to
because
go
of
back
white
to
supremacy.
Nomiki now. I just wanted you to respond on that one point.
Young lady, I live it. I don't have to get paid for it.
Don't call me young lady, sir. I'm a
Bless your heart,
grown
ma'am.
woman. I'm a grown woman,
Nomiki.
and you can come up with all the code you want. But the FBI said that the #1 problem in America right now is white supremacy, organized white supremacy. That took
Ask the
place
people who lost their
on the
job if
lawn
it's white supremacy.
of the Capitol. And so, let's talk about the people who lost their jobs, because Republicans are responsible for tax breaks for the wealthiest. They have no interest in unionized efforts. They're union busters. So if we want to talk about the real issues, you're making all these code words to distract away from the fact that people
Let's
are
talk
hurting
about
on
the
ground
real issues.
and Republicans
Let's talk about the real
doing
issues.
Nothing to save them.
So I want to jump back in here because the far left agenda in your party, and of course you were a surrogate for Bernie Sanders. So you saw that your party picked more mainstream, so they thought. That's not exactly what they're getting right now, but that's what they thought. So let's just go back to the idea that now your brand, so to speak, is getting voted out potentially. People are saying, no, we're done with this. We want you to focus on inflation and those bigger issues. What do you say about that?
If you look around the country to where the people who are not running for office again or switching districts, they're pretty much in more conservative districts. So those are the centrists of the party. Todd Kaminsky, a senator in New York, just said he was stepping down. Catherine Rice said she was stepping down. Those are the conservative Democrats who realize that working people they don't want business Democrats. They want Democrats who protect unions, organized labor. And all those attacks against the school boards right now, that's an attack against labor.
Harris, you've got to let me respond.
Let me hold on one second. Let me just put one more thing in here. In California, we're looking at erosion of support for Feinstein and Pelosi. Pelosi is not exactly in the middle mainstream right now. She's being pulled a bit to the left in the House by AOC and some of the other so-called squad members. So I hear what you're saying, but that is a cobalt blue state. And one in which progressive politics are very, very hot. I want to get to this. Turns out people in the Golden State, again, which is actually very blue, are souring on President Biden. A new poll shows that for the first time in that state, more voters disapprove of his job performance than approve of it. A huge change he had, as approval rating of nearly 60% just last summer, and won that state, both of them. That team right there on the screen won the state by 30 points. Brutal numbers for the Vice President, Kamala Harris, from her home state voters. Only 38% approve. What's happening out there? TW, I'm coming to you.
Well, you've got two real issues, I think, that are facing American people, Harris. Number one, COVID. The young lady on the panel mentioned the COVID numbers. More people have died from COVID under under this president than died under Donald Trump. Biden has overseen the pandemic. He was handed not only a vaccine.
People who are not vaccinated are dying.
That's not true. That's not true. People all over the world are dying because Joe Biden has failed to lead on the issue. And the second is the economy. They have been unable to generate economy
and Nomiki, thank you.
All right, well, there you go. That's your semi-annual Fox News segment to take in. All right, there's a lot to unpack here. And many other shows have done it really well. The Humanist Report, I want to give a shout out to Michael over there. Did a great breakdown of this, but I really wanted to hone in on one point. If you want to get into the science and the art of fighting on Fox News, obviously it's difficult. You don't have a lot of time. I was cut off at the beginning and probably more so than usual. But what I really wanted to do there was steer the conversation away from their invented stories of wokeism and CRT and all this stuff that distracts away from the real issues and bring it back to really whatever wokeism is to them, racial justice to many people. What they call wokeism is the biggest issue right now. And and not the white supremacy. Was that the most perfect debate I've ever had on Fox News? Without a doubt, no. But I got my 3 points in, knowing very well that there was going to be a circular firing squad and that they cut the segment for whatever reason at the end. So that was your dose and my explanation. Key point: when you find yourself in tough situations like that, and someone's steering the conversation in one direction, and then just keeps throwing out accusations after accusation to distract away from the main premise, bring it back to that Achilles heel that they have. The Achilles heel for the Republicans right now is January 6th. And if the Democrats and progressives were smart and want to keep those seats and win some back and keep the House, which, you know, historically is very difficult in midterms, then I would continue to bring up that this is the official endorsement of the Republican Party is the January 6th terrorist attacks. This guy didn't even have the message right because the RNC has endorsed it. And he's saying that Trump wasn't behind it. Well, we all know that's bullshit. So it's our job to make sure that's clear. You know, we are independent media. Shocker. We don't depend on corporate interests. So we are relying on our loyal listeners, the ones who tune in regularly or try to tune in regularly and are committed to supporting progressive independent media. Because let me tell you something, if it doesn't financially work, we don't exist. We're able to do that because of our patrons. Go to patreon.com/The Nomiki Show. There's lots of swag available to certain patrons. You can get a mug, you can get a bag, you can get some stickers. We have exclusive content. We're going to be doing some meetings in a couple of weeks exclusively for our patrons. Go to patreon.com/The Nomiki Show. And if you are not already listening to us on the other platforms, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, iTunes. You can find us on the whole array. It's going to, yep, there it is, right up on screen.